motivation to work was in the bloc.
On the first full day of her visit to Hungary, the Prime Ministers met the so-called Iron Man of Hungary, the Communist Party First Secretary, Mr. János Kádár. She's also seen the Prime Minister, Mr. Lazar, and the Hungarian Head of State, Mr. Paul Rasonsi. Mrs. Thatcher's first engagement today was to lay a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier in Heroes Square in the centre of Budapest. Our diplomatic editor, Michael Brunson, reports from the Hungarian capital.
On a cold and very dismal Budapest morning, Mrs. Thatcher came first to the Hungarian National War Memorial, Heroes Square, to lay a wreath. Mrs. Thatcher then moved on for her official talks to what must be one of the most ornate and beautiful parliamentary buildings in Europe, if not the world. As the Prime Minister arrived for her meetings, preceded by a very imposing member of the Hungarian People's Army, she was rather taken with the splendour of the surroundings too, which make even the glories of the Palace of Westminster seem a little staid. At her first full session of talks with Mr. Lazar, the Hungarian Prime Minister, and other members of the government, Mrs. Thatcher dealt not only with the obvious questions of East-West relations, but on questions of trade relations and other two-way contacts between Britain and Hungary. For it's the Prime Minister's growing conviction that it's those sort of contacts with the Eastern Bloc which can be developed to the point where it's easier to move on to the more tricky political areas. The international political scene was, of course, well to the fore in her discussions with the top man here, the leader of the Hungarian Communist Party, Mr. Kádár. Mrs. Thatcher stressed to him her commitment to East-West dialogue without backing away from any of her commitments to the Western Alliance over, for example, the stationing of cruise missiles in Britain, something Mr. Kádár's already firmly criticised. A growing theme of this visit, however, is the Prime Minister's view that distinct ideological differences between East and West shouldn't mean both sides can't learn to live with each other. Michael Brunson, News at 1, Budapest.
British rail investigators are looking into the collision at Wigan between two freight trains which killed a driver and a guard early this morning. The trains were both travelling south from Glasgow. One train ran into the back of the other, debris was scattered over a wide area and some wagons were derailed. The men who died were on a train travelling from Glasgow to Bescot, near Birmingham, when they hit the other freight train from Glasgow